Hey folks, this is Waylon Lewis from Elephant Journal, and we're going to be live for the next hour. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado. If you're just tuning in, you can comment and say where you're from, and we're going to be talking about the Buddhist notion of love and relationships, and I really haven't prepared much, so I'm going to have to go off based on hopefully my years of ardent study. So thank you so much for joining, and if you feel like supporting this, getting this out beyond the choir, give it a like or a love or a heart or a funny emoticon face and share it with your friends. And we're talking about my book, Things. Do we get an intro?
Yeah, can we give folks a few minutes with?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, spend the time meditating. Oh, I'll deliver. I mean, not the good stuff. Yeah, because I like to get paid for the good stuff. Exactly. For the full answer, you'll have to subscribe to my podcast, 1-800-Buddha, guaranteed.
Yeah. Download the Buddha app. 1-900.
Yeah. And help me attain my third vacation home. Hey Ev, hey Nancy. Yeah, if you're just tuning in, say where you're from. Michelle, we're going to be live for an hour. We're talking about the Buddhist view of love and relationships. And here at the cafe, Innisfree in Boulder, Colorado, they want to begin in a couple minutes. And there's going to be a little intro. And Jean, you don't feel like holding this video? You're not going to be here the whole time, right? Maybe Ashley, you could just hold it on a stand. People are just complaining about the butt shot.
Oh, it's super. You guys, was he one of your professors? No.
Anyway, so if you're just tuning in, say where you're from. And yeah, we're going to talk about my book, Things I Would Like to Do With You. We're doing a reading. And Lindsay, you can give her some love. She's under Elephant Journal. She's commenting live. Hey, Kathy, you just received my book in the mail. Super excited from Phelan, California. That's awesome. Kathy, I hope you enjoy it. Nancy from Austin, Kathy from Pennsylvania, Andrew from Evergreen. Oh, yeah, I'll just do that. So smart. So smart. Wait, did that actually balance? Did that actually... Yeah, that should be fine. If I stand right there, look at that. It's a weird angle.
It's a tough angle.
No, it's good. Thank you. Hey, Hosna. Yeah, Jen, I dressed up for once. Virginia, Atlanta. Andrew, thank you, brother. Boston, Maine, Sweetwater. So yeah, if you want to support this video getting out beyond the choir, we're going to start in a couple minutes with an introduction from, I call him the Saint of Boulder. He's actually from Boston. Brian, he's the owner of this. This is one of 2 all poetry cafes or poetry bookstores in the entire U.S. It's called Innisfree, after, I think, Keats, right? Catherine from Gold Coast, Australia. That's awesome. Kristen, and give each other likes and love. And if you want to support this video getting out beyond the choir at any time, just give it a whole bunch of funny emoticon faces. Lorelei from McKinney, Texas. Sarah from Peterborough, Ontario. Reggie from Cleveland. Sarah just ordered the book. Thank you. And this is not like a sales thing. This is just a book you can buy if you feel like reading about love and loneliness and relationships from a Buddhist perspective. Millie, watching from northern Georgia. So I don't normally give a talk for like an hour. I just did one in Florida, but this is going to be, including questions and answers, about an hour on the Buddhist notion of relationships and loneliness. Sarah's birthday is tomorrow. Everyone give Sarah some love. Joe Beth, Kansas City, Palm Beach. I was just down your way. Dory, I was just down your way. I was in Miami Beach and at the Mindful Path doing a reading in Stewart, Florida last week. Gary from Arizona, Colleen from Melbourne, awesome. I want to visit Melbourne soon. Bethany from Washington. So if you're just tuning in, say where you're from. Feel free to share this with anyone you like. And we're going to start in a minute. All right. I'm like raring to go. I could meditate.
Yeah, you can meditate. You can lead a meditation. Yeah.
It's kind of hard with the boss. The boss.
You can have to turn it off.
Bruce. You don't turn the boss off.
So Waylon, when you do these talks, do you have like different themes that you talk about?
No, I say the same thing every time, just like a stump speech. No, I just say whatever happens.
You do Q&A?
Uh-huh. Super random.
I'm excited.
Everything's random.
Do you guys have questions?
Last time I talked last week I was in Florida doing this, and I talked for 2 hours, and they wanted Trump at the end of 2 hours, so we went to 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's like a long movie. No bathroom breaks. Which was fine, because I think scotch is dehydrates, and that's all I was drinking the whole time. This time I had to pre-game it. All right, Evergreen, Pennsylvania, Austin. Yeah, it sounds funny, but it would probably be really boring. Catherine, Gold Coast, I want to come visit. Peterborough, Sarah. Reggie from Cleveland. Did I already read all of you? Chloe from Montreal. On St. Catherine, perhaps. Peut-être. Newfoundland, Canada. My mom is in Halifax. I used to go up to Montreal and try and buy anything, and people would just yell at me when I tried to speak French. Right, here's Brian. I'm going to film you. The Saint of Boulder.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me on the bench? Okay. We'll make sure you can hear Waylon, more importantly.
So if I can preempt this, this is the best moment of the night to get a drink and support this amazing poetry bookstore cafe. Best moment right now if you need a drink or a snack. All right, because he probably wouldn't say it.
Thank you. So what Waylon just did is a little bit about what I'm about to say about Waylon. And so Waylon, we know Waylon in different ways. I know him from being on the Hill for about 6.5 years. And a lot of how I've gotten to know Waylon and to feel his love and support has all happened in this vicinity. And a lot of it connects to why we're here tonight, and even why Waylon writes such beautiful passages in his first novel. I first just like to go through a couple things. And first of all, I want to say Waylon's introduced in many places across the United States, and people are very joyous to receive him and welcome him and his voice and his compassion. But I feel honored tonight that I know Waylon and I get to introduce him. I don't just know him from his work and from afar, which still has an effect, but I know him personally, and there's been effects in this human body through knowing Waylon, and I get to introduce him that way. And that's exciting. And we'll get into that in a little bit. That's part of the joy of local endeavors supported by local people, that we're not strangers to each other. We know each other and we get to celebrate each other. And we'll get to that a little more. First thing is, we opened across the street in 2010. Some of you might have seen this on social media today. There's 3 poetry bookstores in the United States. One's in Harvard Square, opened in 1927. It'll have its 100th anniversary soon. I worked there for a little while. There's one in Seattle, Open Books, and we, my wife and I, Kate, who's home with our 3 girls, Nora, Claire, and Ruby, decided to open one here in a smaller place called Boulder because of the poetic tradition, history, passion, and the independent support people tended to give. Despite that, when we opened December 10th, right before CEO went to break, we did have moments of what were we thinking? What were we thinking doing this? It looked great on paper. It certainly responded to a passion, but we were rethinking that passion after we opened. But through those days of December and January, where it's dark at 4:23 p.m. and where it's cold, in some ways lovely for a book, Waylon would enter the store at about 4 p.m. with the Elephant Journal staff and treat everyone to a drink and occupy the full long table, not only in the fullness of work, but surrounded by the books, perhaps writing articles for the journal, bookended by the poetry books on either side. And I'd stand behind the bar and be like, who is this guy? Giving us a little ray of life, a little ray of hope, that maybe a ripple leads to a ripple. And Waylon was unbelievable that way. And some of you may know, I didn't know Waylon before that. I knew of him, and people had mentioned it'd be nice to talk to him. Well, it was nice to see him and how he moves through a community and then talk to him. And I'll never forget those days. And there's a picture posted today of Waylon working hard over his trusty Americano. And it's just beautiful. And I'll never forget it the rest of my life, his kindness to me and my wife. So we now get to celebrate Waylon. There's been continuity, there's been support. Through our transition over to the street here, he alerted people we were moving. We're not out of business, please stay with them. And you know, I consider us an example of what Waylon does on a wider scale, on a greater scale here in Boulder and on the Front Range. Like, if something's up that needs a little love, a little care, that's connected to some deep values he feels, he's reaching out in whatever way he can, through showing up on his bike, through bringing Redford so the attendance goes up by 1, and things like that. It's just amazing. And I can look you in the eye, Waylon, and just say, never forget it. It's indelible as the deepest tattoo and emotion. All right? So, how did the book end up in our hands? I believe it came out in December-ish, 2015-ish, but
Do you remember?
of course, Christmas Eve, I text him, I'm running a little behind on a gift from my sweetie.
Oh, right.
And Waylon leaves one on the front door on a snowy night, and I bring it home to Kate, who was just gripped by it, by its gentleness, by its rhythms, by its openness to not having the end vision of a relationship, but to the present moment of a relationship. And for me, a lot of the book, I was fortunate to live in Thailand for about 4 years, and Theravada Buddhism was my introduction to the villagers and some of the retreats. And when I read Waylon's book that we're here to celebrate tonight, one of my teachers, Ajahn Nikorn, who taught me the Thai language, had so many beautiful proverbs and things like that. One quick side one, my favorite one. When people prepare like a house with flowers and good food before someone comes, they call, you're adding cilantro to your property. I just love that. But in Waylon's case, Ajahn Nikorn used to teach me, when a coconut falls from a tree, you can't stand there like this and catch it with your hands flat and splayed out, because you will feel the bluntness of the coconut. But when a coconut falls from a tree, you have to. And that's what I feel on every page in Waylon's book, that when you're in a relationship and you're dancing with someone, working with someone, holding someone through grief, you bring what you bring, but you also receive, and then a new motion, a new wave rises out of it. So thank you, Waylon, for bringing those feelings, emotions, and images back again. I also have an image of Waylon I've never shared with him. When I see him on his bike around town, I grew up in Boston and got the full load of Latin and Greek growing up. I think of the ancient philosopher Diogenes, and he was the gentleman who used to walk around Athens with a lantern, looking for an honest person. And when I see Waylon on his bike, I think of him riding around town, looking for people in the spirit of community, thinking of Mother Earth, thinking of how to walk the earth with compassion, serenity, and mindfulness. That's what I see for our times. That Waylon on his bike is almost a lantern, reminding us of these things through his being, and through what Waylon would say is through what's messaging through him in his being and stuff like that. And I just love the Waylon, you know? Your bike is your lantern, shedding light in different places. Of course, when the New York Times came to Boulder, before the little Republican thing on CU last October, who did they interview? Waylon, to touch in about Waylon, some of its motions, some of its opinions, some of its directions. And I give the New York Times credit. They found the right person to capture the soul and spirit of a town, to give a little feeling of what was going on in this town in 2016. And I appreciate that, Waylon. Again, a lot of this is individual and personal. Waylon comes in all the time, is personable, is friendly, is kind to the staff. And in our world of a bookstore, cafe, we're so grateful and so appreciative, things like that. Waylon has agreed to sign books afterwards and things like that. We have plenty of books here this evening. But without further ado, Waylon, I welcome you to the stage upon which Ernesto Cardenal from Nicaragua has stood, the stage that Anne Waldman has stood upon and read, that Sinead Morrissey from Belfast has read, that so many beautiful poets on the Front Range have read upon. And I'll be honest, I was secretly hoping one day Waylon would stand on the stage. Can we please give Waylon Lewis a warm Innisfree welcome?
So we're Facebook Living this in true elephant fashion. I can never just do one thing at a time, simply. If any of you felt like that intro was too kind, it certainly was, and it's obviously more of a reflection of the gentleman who offered it and his kindness. I call him Saint Brian. How many people here know Brian and know, I don't need to say any more about how kind he is, and no one knows Brian. Donna doesn't know Brian. All right. Apparently I know the outward-facing Brian, and there's an inner Brian that is just cruel and malevolent, like the Sopranos of the Hill. I was super excited and revved up for tonight and not nervous at all. And after that intro, Anne Waldman and all the people who've spoken here and your kind words, I still don't feel nervous because I'm a jerk. I feel incredibly humbled, obviously, and I don't know that I could say anything like came down through me for this book, but I would say that I did get to grow up in the American Buddhist community, and so this book is offered not as, a lot of books are kind of top-down, like self-helpy, like buy this and I'll sort you out or your money back, except you can't get your money back because it's like a P.O. box in some weird suburb that no one's ever been to. You know what I'm saying? You can't get your money back if you buy this book, just a fair warning. And that's because it's offered not as, nothing in this is offered as someone who gets anything. As some of you know, I don't get almost anything, but I did get to have the Buddhist tradition growing up with, and it's growing up with it, and it's been incredibly helpful in my life and in my dating life and relationship life. And I started this book, I think around when I was 38 or 39, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's about time for me to, am I doing all right here? Maybe it's about time for me to start growing up. So let me think about what kind of relationship I could possibly be in. Maybe have any of you ever had this thought, what kind of relationship could I possibly commit to for the rest of my life and mean it? given that change is a constant in relationships as well as in life. And I know at least a couple friends here have been married very recently, so really they should be up here. But I'll wrestle with you, and I'll try and stay up here for a minute. And so I basically just wrote it from the beginner's mind. I love writing, and it was an opportunity to explore all my past relationships, and not from a point of view of therapy or me even. It wasn't really even particularly about me, hopefully. It was about what I'll talk about tonight, the sort of two notions of love. So I can begin with the two notions of love, the good notion that makes some sense and the bad notion that we've all been sort of brought up with. And it's not particularly bad, it just doesn't necessarily work. And so I could start with that, or we could choose your own adventure this a little bit. And I always like to kind of know who I'm talking with. So we can start with a couple questions. So maybe I'll do that. I'll choose my own adventure and just say, is anyone here, it being Valentine's Day tomorrow, experiencing something happy, something sad, something lonely, something full of longing, anything that anyone here would be willing to share?
Well, we just got married about 10 days ago. Now our house, our apartment is covered in paperwork to do immigration stuff. So there's like I-865 forms and I mean stacks of paper this high. So it's like suddenly filling in forms and signing papers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And still trying to play jazzy music and drink wine and like keep the good vibes going.
Well, I have it on good authority that if the immigration authority sees wine glass stains on your paperwork, they know you're for real and you're just in. So it's kind of a shortcut. Well, congratulations. It might be the first time I've seen both of you together since your marriage. So I did run into this guy a few times. And you might have something to offer later, a little reading, because you just wrote a book or something?
I did,
Yeah.
sure, if there's time.
Yeah. I mean, you just cut me off whenever it gets bad. Embarrassing. You're my friend. So anyone else feel like sharing anything, particularly if you're feeling a little bit lonely but like to talk for less than 5 minutes straight? Yeah. Oh, you lowered your hand?
No.
Okay, please. That'd be great.
I'm just traveling through. I've never been to Colorado before. I'm with
Wow.
my older brother. We're both single and have been for a long time.
Wow.
But I'm realizing how, like, this trip for me, I lived in LA for the past 5 years. We're both from Detroit. I'm realizing how important family is again, re-realizing, and that different kind of love, and being affectionate with family members and friends who I haven't seen in a long time. And I don't feel lonely, but it's like nice. It's a different kind of love.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's beautiful, if I may. We have a blog I was actually just Instagramming about today for Elephant I wrote actually 6 years ago, and it's titled Valentine's Day Isn't for Lovers, it's for all those who love, and that's all of us. So, happy Valentine's Day to you and your brother. Yeah, thanks for coming. Anyone else? Something good, bad, happy, sad, all is great. Thank you.
Continually choosing bad partners.
Uh-huh. That's your goal or your...
No, that's been my pattern.
Okay.
Choosing bad partners.
And
I wanna
since
know
you
how to
see...
choose.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you choose? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the answer is easy technically, but the path is really hard. And it's encapsulated by this blog that I share more than any other on Elephant called Maitri. So basically, just read Pema Chodron and you're all set. But it's basically like if you're generally... Is that Kat back there? Who I've never met? Wow. Yeah. Kat was in our academy. We have a training academy internationally, and then she helped lead it. So I've kind of known you for 6 months or something, and we've never met. 8 months. And you're from England or something. South Africa. The accent, you know. Yeah. You can tell how little I've traveled in those two areas. All right. So we tend to be attracted to bad partners. Number one, they can be really fun, like in The Devil and, what was it, Purgatorio or all that stuff. Someone help me out here. Yeah, I'm getting. My mom is going to yell at me. She's an English, teacher, and forget it. I don't remember. But we tend to be attracted to people who maybe aren't that good for us, because we're trying to. We haven't made friends with ourselves yet, fully, generally, and obviously very few, if any of us, have done that fully. But it's a good path to focus on if you're doing that again and again. And I certainly have done that. And I think how many people out there have had bad partners a little bit more than necessary? Not bad, but maybe not great for you mutually. Every time. All right. It is Valentine's Day Eve. So, anyone else? One more? Anyone? Love, loneliness, relationships. If not, yeah.
So I used to be one of those who would always have that bad relationship time and time again. But then I read things that I'd like to do here. I'm having the best relationship I've ever had, and it's not bad at all.
Right. Well, thank you. That sounded like I need to pay you $5 later.
It's really true. It's not for sale.
Cool. Well, yeah, your partner is great, and you two seem great together, and the house is great, and the family's great, and I can attest to everything looking very sweet over there, and very real. So so the next thing is I could read a little bit and stop being theoretical about stuff, maybe ground us in whether this book is even worth hearing or reading, or I could talk about the sort of philosophy around it, the Buddhist philosophy. Which one would people prefer?
Both.
Since I have no opinion. Both. Okay. I'll read a little bit. Okay, we'll do it live. Joke for people who've been on the internet too much. So, so this one has been marked kindly by Lindsay, who's moderating the Facebook Live out here. And what was cool, I should mention, is that people are listening from Australia and almost every state in the U.S., and it's kind of cool. We usually get about 50,000 people in an hour, and we plugged in as free in there. So I can read the first chapter, if that would make sense for people who haven't heard anything. So I wrote this one after, I'm sure all of you out here have had this experience. You have a wonderful date, and as you leave the date, if the date is wonderful and romantic, but you're not getting crazy right away, you leave the date, and you have this little bit of sort of foreboding or heartbreak, almost like pre-heartbreak, because it was so good, and you have no idea what's in store, but you kind of know the odds, right? So that was sort of the feeling. That was the feeling after I wrote this one out of, as well as a healthy dose of burnout, and just that kind of longing, just connecting with someone genuinely. So without further ado, and I would also say that I wrote this as a blog on Elephant, and the internet isn't a particularly kind place. I don't know if any of you have experienced negative comments or trolls or whatever you want to say. I wrote this on Elephant, and it was the first time I ever wrote anything that was like universally people were like, yes, and not just like, that's great on you, like I've gone through something similar. So I realized for once I hadn't totally messed everything up, and maybe I should continue in that vein, and then the book came out of that. So it's titled Things I Would Like to Do With You in the Woods. Can you hear? Okay. The simplest things are often the truest. Richard Bach. I would like to go a ways away to a cabin, and I would like to look you in the eyes, and you look me in the eyes, as lovers do, a soft, invisible smile, quiet, warm, calm. I would like to not come back for 10 days. 10 days is not long enough, but it is longer than I have taken for myself in 11 years. It would be a first visit, a return to the woods of my youth. I can cut wood quite well and show you how. I can pick too much mint because I am distracted by you. The mint is strong, almost bitter in the wild. I would like to walk with you in the moonlight. The grass is wet. I can see you clearly in the dark, only you are black and white. But I cannot see how the gate opens, so I have to feel for it. And the ground is uneven, so walking, talking, listening to, and with you, I walk left and then right as if tipsy. The ground is not flat out here, and I love you. I mean, I love that about nature. It is uneven. I would like to love you, but I do not even know you, and I value space more than even love, for in space we can play. I would make a fort in our cabin out of sheets, and we can go inside and just lie there. I am looking at you into you, and you are looking at me into me, and we could read a paperback. I have a good reading voice. And we could have a fire, though it is not cold, but it would light up the fort, flickering warmly with shadows of our future. I would like to love you, and you love me, for love can only be shared. But my luck does not run that way these days or for a while, and I have a feeling that I will not love and be loved again until all my luck is run out. Quote, a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. Lao Tzu. I would like to talk with you about things I care about that others do not care about because they do not care about me, and here you care not because you care about me, but because you care about the things I care about. Should I read that one again? It's a little hard to follow. I would like to listen. I could do it half the night, hour turning over hour, until I fall asleep in your words. I need to make up time. I need to listen and breathe and take you in and just stop. I need to relax and breathe, and what I need most, of course, is to cry. But you will not see my tears, for I cannot quite cry yet. The mosquitoes, the water roaring beneath us, your unwritten life, set like calligraphy on a new page, arching, bright, sharp, wandering, struggling, fast, laughing. Letting go is half the beauty and elegance. You are kind. I would like to bring a cheap paperback with pen illustrations, say, and read it in the crook of a tree, and I would gingerly walk there barefoot. And you would be overdressed in a $1 secondhand dress as if going to a play. You would skip stones in the creek, then I would try and outdo you. You would set out a picnic in a cold thermos of mint water, and I would eat your leftovers, and the trees far above would waver greenly in my eyes as I looked up at you, looking up at them. There is a yellow butterfly on the book, waving its wings without flying, softly. I wonder what it is thinking about today. On the second to last night, I would like to make another fire, even though we do not need it for warmth, because it is summer and we have old wool blankets. But the flickering flames, the shifting warm light, are the best light for talking, endlessly, as if we were at camp, and sex is not the only thing humans can think about. And perhaps I could hold your hand. There is nothing better than holding a hand. Feeling your fingers, your nails, your calluses, your palm, and your hand held yet holding mine, feeling the stress and bruises of life. Your strong fingers cautioning, rest now, you are cared for. When I awaken, I would like to meditate, with or without you. It is up to you. And I would like to do the samurai's calisthenics, I can show you how, and brush my teeth in the cold stream. And it is the woods, so I would not need to shave. But I might anyways, because sometimes it is doubly nice shaving in the woods, one's face pressed up near to an old little mirror over a wash basin set on a rickety, winter-worn wood shelf. And I would like to make dark, dark coffee in a French press, but you are better at it. I would like to care for you. I would like to see you again, though I know you are already in love with another, and so your love is not available to me. And the funny thing is, I do not mind. Perhaps when one has come over a long mountain pass and is hungry, happy, beaten and sad, and finally humbled and lonely, perhaps then sunshine is enough. And perhaps next time we could go for more than 10 days and never return. Quote, if your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, then this is the best season of your life. End quote, Wu Men. So it being a Valentine's Day reading, I'm going to slowly... If the reading isn't that good, at least we can take the temperature up in whatever way necessary. Give you your money's worth. Which is a warning because it was free, so it won't be much. So I just injured my arm. Just if I look really awkward and can't shake your hand really, I surf downward, which apparently is not the right direction to surf, into the seafloor, and I may be going in for a spinal neck surgery in 2 weeks because my arm doesn't quite work. But if you're noticing other awkwardness, I have nothing to blame it on. So the Buddhist notion of relationships is a really wonderful thing to think about and to keep in mind, at least for myself. As is sort of touched on in here, it involves space, which is often something we forget about, particularly when you're madly in love. All you want to do is to be with them and think about them, and it makes you so happy. It's like a drug, and like drugs, you know, it may not be as fun as it is initially long term. I'm watching Breaking Bad right now, and I can tell you that it doesn't go well. So the notion that a lot of us grew up with is the sort of happily ever after love, right? That you meet the one. How many of us kind of somewhere in our subconscious or foreconscious, is that a word? Or conscious, think there is a one out there and it's just a matter of us meeting them? I mean, I would say I still buy into that notion. You don't count because you found each other. You cheated. You won. Like, yeah. So there's a notion of the one, and even with yourselves, I would say you may be the one for each other, but it's not. You don't live happily ever after. The story doesn't end when you meet that person. You still have to negotiate doing dishes, or not doing dishes, in my case, or you get to have a life together. And it's going to be easy and it's going to be hard, moment to moment and day to day and week to week. And typically the fairy tales we grew up with end happily ever after. So you just imagine, it's all easy. And then what happens with that easy kind of thing is it's not real. So what happened, I also am a Mad Men fan, so there's this like really intense gender roles in Mad Men, right? The guy is out there bringing home the bacon and having affairs, and the woman is supposed to take care of the children and kind of just drink martinis and go batty because she has no friends. She's isolated from community and from purpose and from equality. And it messes with both people in that partnership. It doesn't work for either. And so there's sort of you complete me, the Jerry Maguire notion of relationship, which is that, I think in some wedding vows, all respect to various religious traditions, we even talk about two flames becoming one. And that sounds nice, right? I think it sounds pretty nice. But for any of you who experienced claustrophobia ever, some of us just came from a networking event where people couldn't move and people were yelling into a microphone and you couldn't really hear them, and the food table and the drinks were back there, and it was a bad scene. That's similar to that two flames becoming one. It seems like a good idea. You're walking into a fun party with free food, and then you're kind of stuck. There's no play. And even in what's called Dirty Dancing, there's they have some space between them. You can move around. She's got to jump into his arms, and they play that song. And so a good dance, a good relationship, anything is going to involve some space. And space is often viewed as a negative thing. Like, why do you want space from me? Why do you want to go do your own thing with your guy friends or your girlfriends? I think my friend Jean here and I talked about that once. Like, so many of our girlfriends don't even feel comfortable having their boyfriend go on a hike with their girlfriends, Did that make sense? Like, I don't want my boyfriend to ever go on a hike with a woman, even if she's a good friend of mine. There's a little bit of, and that goes both ways, it's not a gender thing, there's a little bit of clinginess, right? I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that love often has a little clinginess hangover and a jealousy hangover. lift my arm so I can scratch my hair. And it has, there's a lot of hangovers for that notion of love. So if you can allow a little space, kind of like a good salsa or a good dance, then you can play, like I say in there. Then you can have fun. And that's what you see in the those 80-year-old couples who kind of make you jealous, right? We often look at our elderly brothers and sisters and we're like, I'm glad I'm not old yet and my knees aren't hurting. But there's some older couples you look at and you're like, and you see them still flirting, and maybe they're a little bit like nagging on each other, but kind of in an affectionate way. And you're like, how do they do it? You know, there was a viral little video on Reddit of this old elderly gentleman at the airport, like nervously waiting for his wife, I assume, with flowers or something, and then she comes up, and just the way they hug, like they're just so happy. They're like little kids, except they're not. They've been together for, I mean, there's a lot of assumptions in this video. You have no idea what's going on, but let's just assume that, yeah, maybe they're having an affair, right? Damn it. But you know, the odds are that they've been in a long relationship, and how do you keep that freshness? So the two things generally you want are, you want affection, which is like warmth, heat, passion, intimacy, fire. But you also, what does fire need, right? To burn? Yeah, it needs air. So, and that's awesome, because then that's the kind of relationship that I think I could probably commit to, is a relationship that has some space for me to be a workaholic, or for me to travel, or for her to travel, or for her to say at the age of whatever, when I think I know who she is, that she's going to start a different career. Or, you know, these changes that we often see as threats to our happily ever after domestic bliss. So that's the basic idea. It's probably, I'm not communicating from a super intimate, touching place, because I'll blame Brian. I had a shot of espresso I shouldn't have had. But that's, I think, even just hearing that basic idea that the Buddhist notion of partnership is not two flames becoming one. It's two people who love each other and allow mutual independence and space. And what else does space provide? A sense of humor, passion. It's a lot easier to be attracted to someone who you still have some kind of appreciation for, you know? Like if you're all like spooning on a sweaty night all your whole relationship, at a certain point you're gonna want that space, right? And so it's a partnership. And as I wrote in a blog that kind of preceded this one, titled Love is Selfish, I was kind of in love with this lady, and she said to me, and we're kind of on the same page of this, she said to me, I don't want to just go on a lifelong picnic with someone I fall in love with. I actually want to accomplish things in life. And I was like, oh my God, that is so attractive, to find someone who, the point of life isn't love of one person. The point of life is that your love of one person, or if you're into polyamory, however many people you prefer, or if you're single, love, you know, Maitri for yourself, making friends with yourself, is to offer love to the whole world, or to, if you're a teacher, to your students, or, you know, your customers, or, you know, to be a benefit to the world. And that's a little less selfish. And ideally, your partnership of love would enable you to do that. The best partnerships I think any of us have had here helped us become better people. And that's not all easy. I remember I was dating this lady, Rose, who helped me found Elephant. And I remember I was like this crazy environmentalist, and before it was cool, kind of hipster style. And I remember her saying to me, you know, that's one of the best parts of you. You should do more of that. You should nurture that. And I, up to that point, had been kind of embarrassed about it, you know, because it's sort of a pain in the butt to be an environmentalist, as very few of you probably know. But if you start getting uptight about plastic, you become a pain to be around, you know, because plastic is like in 10 casual exchanges a day. And if any of you have plastic right now, I'm not saying you're a bad person. It's just like a mindfulness thing, everyday life thing. Being a vegan is like the epitome of being a pain in everyone's butt. You know, you can't just open a menu and order. You have to have like a 5-minute conversation about your bun. you know. So anyway, I'm probably off track. So does anyone have questions and you feel like bringing me back, or I can read a little bit more and then we can open it up? Any questions or challenges, or no? You're all riveted. For those of you on the video, I'm actually just talking to myself at this point. It's kind of sad. Everyone left. Yeah, Brian.
So Waylon, I'm curious how you got to this understanding or perspective of loving relationships, romantic relationships. Was it through childhood spirituality you were introduced to? Was it through some of your own journey meeting that? If you could share a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a good reminder. I've gone through an incredible amount of loneliness in my life. And I think all of us do, but we aren't comfortable with that word. And there's, in the Buddhist tradition, it actually talks about loneliness as a really sweet, wonderful thing. And it's kind of like an epic example of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's uncomfortable, so we kind of try and get rid of it. And we, you know, we re-up our Netflix subscription or whatever we can do to kind of like paint over the loneliness. You know, we go out drinking, we try and sleep with a bunch of people without making good connections, genuine connections with them. So, but loneliness is actually kind of awesome stuff. As any of you who love, you know, sad songs knows, it can be sweet stuff like blues or shakuhachi, if anyone knows that. If you do know that, you're pretty weird, just like me. The shakuhachi is the Japanese flute. I don't know if you've heard it, but these incredibly like heartbreaking romantic sounds, those are the sounds of loneliness. And if you try and banish that entire emotion from your life, you're going to live a somewhat ungrounded, ingenuine life. So I think the only authority possibly I could ever claim is that I'm pretty comfortable at the age of 42 now with loneliness. I remember when I was young and cooler than I am now, I was full-on embarrassed. Probably most of you are, because most of you are younger than me, but full-on embarrassed Thursday and Friday nights when I had roommates if I wasn't going out. If I was like tired and I just wanted to like whatever, you know, I don't know what I did, watch something or read, I'd be embarrassed, you know, because your friends come by and they're, hey, what are you doing at home, man? You know, you're like, I don't really want to be, you know, I don't want to go out. So loneliness is something I made friends with over time, and we have a great blog on that if anyone wants to read Elephant Journal, called The Buddhist Notion of Loneliness as a Good Thing. But yeah, and then I do want to have children and all that, so I have thought a lot about like this. I think marriage has evolved so rapidly and devolved both. You know, it was something you could kind of count on. It was basically an arranged marriage situation, even in the West. You get married, you stick with it no matter what. Even if it's abusive, like you just stick with it. And we often romanticize that and say, you know, marriage has fallen apart, and people used to really, but half the time they're miserable or they weren't even that connected. So I think it's really an exciting time historically where we get to marry for love, which is still incredibly rare historically, but love again is not a very dependable thing. So you're kind of saying marriage and, I mean, they're very opposite currents to connect, and you're going to get shocked if you can't kind of enter into it in an incredibly, you know, in a way that is through your friendship with one another. I'm going to point to you guys all night since you just got married. So I write about that a lot, that you know, I have a best friend, Dave. I have a few best friends, but I'll talk about Dave because he's in my life a lot. I don't think that much. I don't have that much fear. Hope or fear are considered the same kind of coin, the same problem in Buddhism. I don't have a whole lot of fear that we're not going to be friends in 5 years or 20 years or 40 years. We will or we won't be, but I'm pretty sure we will be. But I don't know. And that's a pretty nice notion for a marriage. You know, the difference is obviously that Dave snores and he's hairy, and for me, myself, I'm not attracted to him. Other people would be, and that's great. But I'm not into it, especially the snoring. We just did a trip together in Miami, and the more comfortable he was at night with the AC, the louder he snored. What was I talking about? So if friendship can be the foundation of a romantic, of a love, of a marriage, then you're kind of good. You don't have a whole lot of hope and fear. And even if you're not always attracted to each other, you have this foundation of, it's fun to go do something with someone. Like I see that with Gene and Dan, who just got married. Like, you know how when you're in love, it's like crazy fun to go to the movies, or like to go bike somewhere, or to go to the grocery store. It's it's like crazy fun. And it doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing, really. The movie could suck. It's just, but from a Maitri point of view, we often look for that as a substitute for becoming best friends with ourselves first. Because if you can be best friends with yourself first, then you can go to the movies alone, grocery store alone, and whatever the other example was, alone, and have a great time. Because it's awesome. Like, how many of us are like, we use our friends like crutches. Like, we can't go to a party without a friend. We can't go to like, I just went to that networking thing alone tonight. I mean, I knew you would be there. I knew a bunch of people would be there. So that's kind of cheating. But if you're comfortable, it's super fun to go somewhere alone, right? It's awesome. So even if it doesn't look awesome, to the outside, it's great. So
Thanks.
yeah, thank you, Brian, for saving me there. Any other comments or questions, or I can just read more? That'll be your punishment. You could, so we can play the game of someone could pick their favorite number. You want to pick a number? 13. All right. It is the 13th. I like that. Well, 13's the pre-ramble. So I called it the pre-ramble because it sounded more cowboy than preamble. As we look to the sort of future love that we would like to hold, one that includes ample room for our loneliness and our love's independence, and yet is full of our friendship. Very apt passage. Nailed it. Kind of ruins the mood when I yell nailed it in the middle, doesn't it? We look over our past relationships and remember their lessons in love, and a long line of the dear hearts who have loved us, however briefly, files slowly past and waves goodbye to us one by one. So that's sort of what I pictured writing this book. I wrote this passage at the very end, but just sort of seeing think about that in your own life, all the people you've dated, however briefly, however you want to define dated, just walking past you one by one, and you almost like It's a Wonderful Life, like remembering that story fully. This story is not true, but it is not fiction. The story is my heart's life. A cabin that is not a cabin begins the story that is not a story, though I do not yet know where I will find the cabin that will finish the story. I have written the story out so that it will forget me. I leave our precious past in the stream beneath the trees. I have taken my pen to... I can't read all this. So sweet. I'm feeling too social to read sweet stuff. Maybe I'll pick something. Is that all right? I read most of 13. Or any other numbers out there?
117.
All right. I'll read a bit of 82 and then I'll go to 117. 117. It has not been a month or a week or 4 days. It has been my whole lifetime since I have seen you. So that I'm writing sort of about the notion of whoever you or me, we might meet and stick it out with. It has not been a month or a week or 4 days. It has been my whole lifetime since I have seen you. I've sailed out to sea every morning, waking when it is still dark. The stars light against the cold sky, unraveling what my wiry hands had coiled up the night before. It had been too long, so long that I did not know you until I met you and said goodbye again to you. A lifetime without your friendship. I would like to see you. But I would like to have been alone for these many years. Alone gives me strength, stability, and clarity in my direction. I have tried on different loves and thrown them off, and others have tried my love and tossed me off. Nearly all have been good and kind or shallow but fun, and I have appreciated all of them, if only perhaps for a season, and they perhaps have appreciated me, and we are still friends, if still in touch. but they did not make me dream again in excitement and simultaneous fear of loss that is gratifying and humbling. I would like to travel with and without you, and sail with and without you, and date you for those same years, a pleasure to spend a morning dancing like children to an old song while I make breakfast and you make coffee in wide off-white potter's mugs with blue rims that say all done at the bottom. I would like to do many things before we should ever call this anything. For when we touch the earth, we touch a foundation of interdependence and impermanence both. For we build this castle in the sky, in space. We are what stars or trees or streams are, and stars or trees or streams, trees or streams are what we are. And if things come together, if only for a moment or an eon, it is the same. It is a warrior's love song you and I can sing in the shower. I would like to remember that you and I, we began things properly, slowly, deliberately, in the old way, as if we meant it. All right. I think the fellow writer started that round of applause out of mercy. So 117, it's in the middle of the passage. Should I go back or forward?
Back.
All right. Oh, it's too intimate. My mom, when I wrote this and she read it, she was like, Waylon? What are you doing? It's like, I'll just skip a paragraph. How's that? How do you like them apples? Okay. I think this is like a breakup thing. Probably just got dumped or something. And now I would like to go to a cold cabin alone up on a hill above a stream and pretend to be old. It will soon be cold, but not yet freezing. So this whole book is organized by seasons. So this is the winter season, which, if you're a positivity kind of person, anyone into positivity out here? Skip winter. It will soon be cold, but not yet freezing. I do not think well anymore. I do not think of anything much. I am too full of conditional feeling, the feeling we call sadness. Soon I would like to hide my face behind a red beard. It has already started, and the red sideburns will curl as they are wont to do. I will wear a red hat over my matted hair. And when I bicycle back down to this twinkling town this white winter, I would like to go to bars alone and laugh thickly and convince random friends of my joy. I would like to enjoy fun too fully without pausing to savor it, like an emptied glass against another night. This is the time when sorry men drown in drink, but I like to sip good scotch, and in the morning an Americano. Both are the color of lacquered wood, and both taste like a kiss, a brief moment of dreams. They are like this. There you go, you are happy, you are popular. They will think, people are all like this. There you go, you are happy, you are popular. They will think of me no more. They do not care. I am a favorite old cafe that people like to frequent, but if I close, folks mutter and move on. And yes, this is all you have been to my sadness. I actually haven't read this since I wrote it. So look at this. A match for me to burn myself up again. And now I have that much less hope and that much less fear. This is good. This season of increasing cold. Do you want to? I'll read a little more since I swear probably for the only time in the book. A moment, children, cover your ears. I'm about to say fucking. A moment of truth and caring, and a soft moment when my life opened like a frightened fucking flower as my heart felt fire and then gone like the scotch. So I order another and lean against the bar, and I do not watch my friends of friends lean against one another in love. And I do not pity my sadness, for it is my friend, and I do not pity my friends. I cannot run from our encounter, for it is too late to run. I can already feel the red circle growing beneath my jacket and my sweater, staining my wrinkled cotton dress shirt. I can feel the warm blood, my chest shot through with Cupid's arrow. And there's a Valentine's reference.
Nice.
Let's go. So maybe yeah, Jane.
Yeah, you talk a lot, obviously, about loneliness and becoming best friends with yourself. Can you talk about practices you do to become your own best friend?
Thank you. So, I mean, if any of you don't meditate and don't really have interest in meditation, I really recommend Pema Chodron. Read one of her books. All her titles are like ridiculous titles that I wish Elephant could think of every day. They're like clickbait, but in the most powerful, profound, untacky way ever. You see those titles and you're like, you buy the book, like you go black. You buy the book and you read it, and then you wake up like in your bed crying a week later. That's how good the titles are, and the whole book is that good. So just buy the books and read them and see me in the morning kind of thing. But if you do practice meditation, and you don't have to be a Naropa student, which I was, to do meditation, it's now okay and normal, kind of like yoga. It's been on the cover of Time. I am in Innisfree in Boulder, so I probably don't have to talk about how meditation is okay, but at least to the bros out there, it's cool. So basically, meditation is just a practice of coming back to the present moment from our ridiculous kind of and insidious and redundant and repetitive, and also redundant and repetitive self-absorption. So when we wake up, as Samuel L. Jackson said in Pulp Fiction, we have a brief moment of clarity, and then our to-do lists swamp our minds, right? Isn't that kind of, or now it being 2017, suddenly our phone is in our hands and we're like, oh, how many likes did I get on Instagram? Never enough is the answer, never enough. There's a vacuum in your heart that will never be filled by social media. So it's good to, instead of that, to wait, to just get up, go to the bathroom, let your dog out, go through 3 hours of having children, and then sit down and meditate for a few minutes. And with meditation, you just take a good posture. We could all try it for 30 seconds if you like. Is everyone up for meditation? If not, there's the door. And there's the other door. You can choose. So basically, just take a great posture. You can kind of wiggle your sit bones and find a good happy medium. And kind of like that TED Talk, if anyone watched it, like take the best posture of your entire day. Like a ridiculously good posture, like Wonder Woman posture, Superman posture. A posture that's a little bit ridiculous. And then relax. Because you don't have to be a superhero. You can just be a hero. So take a great posture and relax. And now find your breath. Maybe for the first time all day, consciously connect with your breath. This isn't a spiritual breath. This is just your breath, which is pretty spiritual. But you're not putting an overlay on it. This is a profound breath that I would do in like Sophie's yoga class. So just take a nice breath in and out. So this is a profound moment. We do not want an interruption right now. No, I'm kidding. Some people just walked in. So with this particular practice, your eyes are actually open. This is shamatha meditation. So I know people like Sophie want to have your eyes closed, but we actually want to invite the world in, because this practice is about training your mind to come back to the present moment in your daily life, not separate from it. So eyes open, this is shamatha, which is translated as resting the mind. And what are we resting the mind in? Anyone? Yes. Ding, ding. Okay, so take a great posture. Just breathe. Follow your breath in and out. Probably breathe even if I'm not instructing you to. Just keep breathing in and out. You can allow little gaps on each end. If your eyes are open, they can rest about 5 feet in front of you. If you're distracted, say by someone coming like 45 minutes late, or by my espresso-fueled humor that is kind of inappropriate. Just label that thinking. Just say, I'm distracted. I'm thinking, and return to your breath. Place your attention lightly on your breath in and out. If you're thinking, I don't get it, this is boring, label that thinking and return your attention to the breath. If you're thinking, I'm hot, I'm thirsty, I want a cookie, I want to go to drink some beer over the sink, label that thinking, return your attention to your breath. If you're thinking, Valentine's Day is tomorrow, I'm so lonely, everyone else out there has love figured out, while I'm here alone, talking in front of a whole cafe, people are judging me. You just label that thinking and return your attention to your breath. And that's it. We could all bow to each other. So when I say that's it, basically you just do that, but you do that for, a month, like a Dachen or a week up at Shambhala Mountain Center or any Buddhist meditation center. And then you do it for another week and another month for basically the rest of your life. And you'll probably be 5% less neurotic at the end of that. The second